This is Talk, the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Well, I say the home of common sense, also the home of free speech. But apparently our universities haven't been the home of free speech for quite some time, whether it's a lecturer hounded out for voting for Brexit or not really thinking that men can become women on a random Thursday afternoon just because they think it, or any other view, I don't know, supporting Israel. Bit of an issue these days, isn't it? Whether it's students who simply want to, well, safely just, give their opinions without being hounded out of class and forced sometimes even to apologise to fellow students for simply giving their point of view. Freedom of speech on campus has been destroyed in recent years. Well, this September might be a shock to some students, but it'll be welcomed by many others. It's coming back thanks to the Office for Students, which regulates universities, and a new freedom of speech law. Delighted to say that spokeswoman at the Free Speech Union, Connie Shaw, has joined us in the studio. Good morning to you to discuss this. Now, the headline's great today. Be ready to be shocked and offended at university, students told. Tell us what the change is going to be and who's outlined it.
So this is guidance that's come out from the Office for Students because of the Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act, which will come into power this August.
Which the government really wanted to drop, didn't
they? Yes. They really have to be pushed to unshelve this and then passed basically a watered-down version of the original version which the Tory government proposed. Yeah. But this guidance is a massive win for free speech, especially because the OFS has taken the advice of the Free Speech Union, which recommended that their definition of protecting free speech means protecting all lawful speech. So that means that universities should not be regulating any legal speech.
Things like trans women are not women.
Yes.
And that's genuinely been something. We've had regular guests on the show who've been hounded out as students, and we know, famous cases, lecturers simply for holding that view and expressing it in a completely reasonable context.
Absolutely, and so hopefully this will give a lot more reassurance to academics, because we've also seen those stats that a huge proportion of academics feel like they can't speak about controversial issues.
To their students or in their own papers.
Yes, and I know academics personally who have had campaigns against them. Obviously we have the massive cases of Kathleen Stock and the like, but I know this happens to academics all the time, where they have students making complaints about them, tracking their social media to check what they're saying online, and now they can be reassured that universities will be held to account to protect their speech.
Universities may not agree with them because they may be as woke as the students, but they have no legal choice. And again, it's very important that there is actually a punishment for the universities. And the Tories were going to go much further, weren't they? But it's often not just the cases. I know that the Free Speech Union deals with a lot. There's some high-profile cases where people do something, say something, and then they get punished for it. But there are actually far more cases of people who don't say what they want to say, whether it's lecturers or students or people in the workplace, because of the fear of that. And it's that shutting down of freedom of speech. And the thing I find so extraordinary about this, and my daughter, she's got her last 2 A-levels today. She's going to go off to university. When I went to university many years ago, the idea that you would shut down someone saying something you disagreed with, or ban them, or think that a university lecturer should lose their job, or that students should be, attacked, sometimes even physically, or banned from the campus for giving their opinion, whether you agreed with it or not. People would have laughed at you and said that was weird. How did this happen?
Well, I think it's almost a perfect storm of many things. The fact that identity politics has taken such a hold of society. And then obviously we had COVID, where everyone was, young people, especially my generation, were on their phones, felt very powerless. So the least they could do was become mini activists online. And they've come into university thinking that the most appropriate way to deal with people that they disagree with is to silence their views. And this attitudes of students is really quite shocking. They think that they have the right to not encounter anything that they find offensive or unsettling, which is great, which is why it's great that Arif Ahmed has proposed that
Arif Ahmed, he's the head of the Office for Students,
who has proposed that they have these sort of inductions to practice being shocked by opinions.
Terrifying?
It is terrifying.
But we've had this issue in schools. I mean, this is a problem with teacher training colleges. It's a problem with universities, academics. I'm not supposed they're not going to come across many academics who are all working from home still on Zoom, for goodness sake. But we've had this with young people again. This expectation and some of the statements, these demonstrations, whether it's anti-Israel, supposedly pro-Palestine, but it's actually anti-Israel, the climate change issue, this idea that I'm 18 years old and you all have to listen to me, which is weird because in my day, I mean, people didn't actually shut you up, but they did tell you to shut up.
Well, yes, but students now are taking that into their own hands to actively campaign. I've had people try and campaign against my presence on campus when I was at university. The student union even compelled
and
students to try
what was your offence, supposedly?
Oh, I'd basically expressed some gender-critical views on campus.
You expressed biological facts on, yeah. Well, I mean, frankly, I want you hounded out of this studio for that. But this is the thing: we're not talking about. Now, there was the claim, a complete lie from the Education Secretary that, well, we need to protect the freedoms of Jewish students, so we don't want to bring in this. No, Jewish students have had their freedoms, safety on campus. I mean, in America as well, but here as well. I've friends whose kids are Jewish who've been told by people, don't go to like London School of Economics. I'm Jewish and I don't feel safe here. You can't go there. We've already got that. Freedom of speech is what protects everybody.
Exactly, and again, that is what students don't understand, that one day they might have an opinion which other people think is worth silencing, and so they don't see why freedom of speech is important. They see it as this promoting hate speech, so people can just... I've been described as pretending to be a feminist, but actually that's just a guise for being able to spread hate speech.
Obviously. But again, it's not just in universities, or that's breeding it. Because a lot of us thought, well, they're getting this at university, but when they get into the real world of work, well, no, now they've got the HR, DI departments who are going along with all this madness. Now they've got, the government, the media, and again, this whole sort of, you're a quote climate denier, you can't go on the BBC anymore. This is happening on a grand scale, but we need to stop it in universities, which is where we're supposed to have freedom of thought for new ideas. The whole point of going to university is to be exposed to different people and different ideas.
Well, quite, and these are the young people who are going to be going into politics and going into the civil
How terrifying
service.
is that? Needing lessons on freedom of speech.
And obviously it is essential to political discourse that we do take the risk of offending each other when we debate. As Jordan Peterson said, everyone takes the risk of offending each other when you debate, but if you don't take that risk, how are we ever meant to pursue the truth?
Connie Shaw, I mean, thank you so much for coming in. The great work you do at Free Speech Union. I mean, from your own experience, of course.